You're with Pastor Troy right here. We're getting excited. We got a special program for you. You're going to be seeing over the next few weeks until we get ready for season 2. You're going to be seeing the best of the On the Dock season 1. These will be coming at you hard and steady. Want you to get them out there, check them out, help us get them out to your friends. We want to see you on YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes as well. But this is the best of, get this, the best of season 1. Get ready for it. We're going to be coming at you with a super season 2 coming up this August. We'll see you soon. Enjoy this episode of On the Dock season 1, best of. Found us. We're on the dock with Pastor Troy here. We have got an incredible series going on here. You're going to love it, and we're all about getting you off this dock, but we want you to stay here long enough to hear this show. But when you're done, you can get off this dock, get out there, and do great things for God. We want you to get out of the shallows and into the deep. That's our heart for you. Hopefully you're going to get that. I know you're going to get that. You're going to get fueled up to date and ready to go. Find us on our platforms. You need to be watching us to get anything. So if you're watching us, you're here. But we have other partners. You better have other partners lined up, because at any point in time with what we're saying in this episode, we could get kicked off of YouTube or Facebook easily. So please make sure you find us on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube. Also go to Google Podcasts, Facebook. Just in case, you better have Roku hooked up. Roku, download the SermonNet app, find the On the Dock with Pastor Troy channel, and get Rumble. Rumble's our big backup for YouTube. You never know. YouTube's crazy these days. So get the Rumble going, and you can always download the SermonNet app. It's a great app, great thing. You can always do that. So check us out on our social media partners as well, Facebook, Telegram, Instagram, and Twitter. And you can please subscribe, hit like, notify, whatever they call it on their channel, hit the thumbs up, do all those things, and tell other people and share the shows with other people and stay involved. We got lots of good stuff on the dock here going on. And we want you to be one of our partners. Be a Patreon partner. You can get one of these fine coffee cups here. I'll hold it up for Lucas here. There you go, Lucas. Good coffee cup here. Go get one of these. You want one of these? Go to onthedock.org, become a Patreon partner. Link over to Patreon or download the Patreon app and become a partner or sponsor. We'd love to have you. We'll send you one of those if you get all lined up. Finally, all of our stuff, go to onthedock.org. You can download and get linked to Patreon. You can get downloaded and linked to all of our platforms. You can also watch our viewer right there and watch us. So they take us off of everything. We're still at onthedock.org. Go watch us right there. And you can email us at info@onthedock.org if you got any questions. Now we're in the next episode, part 4 of our LifeSource Church series. I fixed my spelling from part 3 when I was introducing this. I had through the eyes of the one closest, and I dropped the T, and both of the mothers of the church here tore into me relentless. Britton didn't say a word. He's kind of cool. He kind of like, yeah, brother.
Felt bad for you.
Felt bad for me. Yeah, taking the beating, and then Mother Beth and Mother Kara piled on, and it just looked like something out of a bad football game. And I did not score. I got sacked. Yeah. So I got on the set with me for this thing. We still have with us Pastor Brent Pyles and his lovely bride, Mother Kara Pyles, from LifeSource Church in West Frankfort. Guys, welcome.
Thank you.
Good to have you guys here. We are ready to get going in this incredible discussion. So in this episode, let me back up. We're going to talk about, I'm going to put that slide back up. We got through the eyes of the one closest. When I started doing the Pastoring in 2020 and Beyond series, we had Shane in to do that with Christ Church. We didn't get his wife, Melissa Bishop, in on that episode. I am going to get Melissa down here, get her online, get her on Zoom, and get her on the record. But one of my hopes and dreams was to, in these pastoral segments, to get a time with the one closest to the pastor, and that's the spouse. And Mother Kara, you happen to be that, and we've got Mother Beth in here today. So we are in trouble. We got 2 mothers. That's a bad deal. It's like double trouble. And we got 2 of them in here, but we wanted to take a time to focus a little bit more on you. It's not that Brent can't talk and say something. We can speak up. We'll try to defend each other, brother. I got your back. I got your back. I got your back.
Right.
Yeah. And the door's right there. I'm older and slower, so that means you can get out first.
I'll get the door open.
Yeah,
for
use
you.
me as a sacrifice. You know,
Clean this space.
there's
for
two
you.
people and a bear coming. It gets the slowest. That's why I would hit you in the knee first. Yeah, in Jesus' name. All right. Yeah. So my vision was that with the spouses present, there's no better window than to talk to you about, because you sit next to Brent. You've been doing this for 8 years at LifeSource. Beth's been with me for 33 years of this. There is the one closest to you knows. They know what you look like before service and after service, in the up and the down. They know that there is a cost to lead. You know what the cost to lead is. There's a huge cost to lead the people of God. And it's a joy to sacrifice. If you're called, it's a joy to make the sacrifice, but there's a cost. And I want people to hear there are some costs so you can appreciate your pastors, appreciate your spiritual leaders, and recognize that there is a sacrifice. It's given to the Lord, not to you, but you need to understand and respect that. It's like when David said, I want to drink a cool water, and his top elite soldiers fought their way into Bethlehem to get that cold cup of water from that well, and they brought it back to him. And David took the water and said, I can't drink this because you men went and got this for me. And he poured it out as a gift to God because of who his men were. You know that the work of pastoring, there's a sacrifice that's there. And to be honest with you, none of us mind pouring it out, but we want you to know to get there was a battle.
Right.
There were sacrifices made in the family, to our kids, to our friends, to my. I mean, gosh, I have a large family and they plan Christmas every year and we can't go. They call me and say, "Oh, we're doing the Christmas party on the Saturday before. You get church Sunday morning." Guys, I work for a living in the church. Right. Christmas is our biggest time of the year. I know you guys don't go, or if you are going to go, you're going to show up about right before the service. But we can't be here, leave Memphis at midnight, get in at 4 a.m, and then give our best the next morning. Right. So we just kind of checked out of those things. We didn't want to. We'd love to be there with the rest of the family, but Easter events, things like that, we just can't go. We just got to be fresh. So there is a sacrifice. We're not griping about it. It's just the cost of doing business. Right. There's also things that are blessings. Mm-hmm. There's things that the cost to lead is costly, but you also get to be there for some special moments. Right. This week in our life, I get to stand and officiate the wedding of a sister in our church that's like family. She's like a young sister to me, and I get to do her wedding and her new husband, and it's going to be such a blessing for us to go and be a part of them, to be there through the counseling and to see their new family start, to be there for births. We had a miracle in the church just recently. Guy that I was called in, he was a dead man. He died. They brought him back, and then he was going to die again. He was so bad shape that when they called Barnes from Carbondale, they said, he's dead. We don't want him. And he's alive and doing well.
Yeah. Praise God.
I was there for it. I was there. I mean, I was there in the cath lab when we prayed for him at the end. Yeah. I heard the testimony of the cath nurses coming up and telling him he's a miracle, and they want to know what church he goes to. Well, we're a church that doesn't quit. Right. Even if he'd gone down the drain, we were all ready to understand it was well with his soul. Right. But that's a blessing to be there and see God come through. You girls get to see some of that stuff, And then lastly, there are things that I think would help us as pastors, but we can't say it. There's things that if people only knew, they might be able to give a little more room or understanding. And so they might not, sometimes we won't tell people, hey, by the way, it's my day off. I'm exhausted. I haven't had one. You can kind of help us maybe see some boundaries or some things people could do to make the life of pastoring better. Because I would say of all the people I started ministry with, there's well less than a third of us that are still in ministry after 32 years. Mm-hmm. And the ones that are in ministry, we're tough. We've been successful, good leaders. Not all of us have had the best boundaries, but we've had to build some to survive. Oh, yeah. So I wish I'd have done a lot of that sooner than I did. And but I'm just tough enough that I made it, and I'm getting better and better at that. But there's a lot of those things I wish I'd done better. So maybe there's some things we could help young people out there, young ministers, young families going into ministry, grow through today. And so I want Kara and Beth to be our primary voices today. So Mother Kara, first of all, just tell me about your primary role when you work alongside your husband, Pastor Brent. What are the things you do? What are your primary roles in leading in LifeSource? Is it in front, background? Do you have your own ministries? What are some of the things that you do as your primary role in leading?
Well, like in the previous sessions, fought it for 3 years, but when I finally, accepted and enveloped my role.
I fought the law and the law won. That's what came to my mind. Sorry.
That's okay.
And Jesus won.
Yeah, he won.
Explain though. You're a preacher's kid.
Yes.
So if they didn't watch this, your
Right.
PK, you had good reason for going, oh no, I'm not doing this like my mom had to do it. I did
Yes.
this. Right? Okay, good.
Yeah, seeing everything she went
You
through.
weren't being rebellious because you hated the Lord. You loved the Lord.
Oh, yeah,
You were being
absolutely.
rebellious because you knew what the cost would be.
Yeah, yeah.
to
It
you,
wasn't
your
wasn't my spiritual walk at all. That was never affected in this. My love for Jesus, and souls, everything like that. But as far as physically pastoring a church, I just wasn't up for it. At 100%, it's probably about a 2%.
2%. My wife has a little bit of a story like that because, I wasn't a preacher when we met at all. And what's funny is it's interestingly when we started dating and stuff and got real serious, I met her dad. The first time I shook her dad's hand, her dad was a elder in his church, leader in his church, just had a very good prayerful prophetic spirit. And when I shook his hand, the first time he looked at me, he says, "You're going to be a preacher." I laughed at her dad. I said, "Nah, you're silly. Silly. You got the wrong dude." I was running an insurance company and had no interest in preaching whatsoever. And it wasn't long before the Lord grabbed a hold of me. It was very soon after that the Lord grabbed a hold of me and called me into ministry. And so Harold's with the Lord now, but he got the last laugh on that. Now I don't know if Beth is happy about that, but it's where we are now. It's not where she started.
Right.
Yeah. Are you mad about it, honey? No, you're not mad. You're okay about it.
Yeah,
You were in a
right.
PK though.
No, I wasn't.
Yeah. So Kara, what after you engaged? So I guess the first 3 years you were more support role to Brent.
Yeah, I was more in the backgrounds.
Yeah, you
I
didn't
was
stab him to
quiet.
death in his sleep at
No.
night or anything like that, did you?
No, I was supportive for him.
Were
I
you
was-
Job's wife? Like, you curse God and die, you.
No.
You weren't that. You weren't that bad. You weren't that.
No.
Okay. Good.
Not
I
at
have
that
known
level.
pastors' wives though that did that.
Oh, yeah.
No, bad. And I'm going to say up front,
yeah.
and Carrie, you wouldn't have scared me on that because when new people get called into the Lord, they come into my office and say, "I feel a call into ministry." The first thing I do is I give them a book called The Road to Ground Zero. Go back to my Fred Bishop. That's my spiritual mentors. That is episode 7. Our first episode with a guest, and you'll see the book in that episode, The Road to Ground Zero. It talks about finding your ground zero from where you can start ministry.
Right.
And when somebody comes in my office, I give them the book and tell them to go read it. I don't say anything else. I go read it, come back. When they come back, I go, if money were an object, time were an object, space were an object, what would you do if you could? And I'll listen to what they say. They say, I always want to own my own restaurant, do. And I'll say, okay, here's the deal. I want you to go do that and come back and talk to me later about ministry. Because until you're telling me it's the only thing I can do none other than that. That's one. Number 2, is your wife on board?
Right.
If your wife's not on board, you go back and work on her and wait a little longer, Joseph. She'll get on board.
Yeah, because this could be miserable if she's not.
If she's not. You would have not have stopped me from telling Brent to go forward, but I would have said, be patient.
Right.
Be patient. It'll come. And
Right.
so that turn for you, you shared how that turned, and you guys kind of did that together. At Giant, you said Giant City. You
Yep.
wrote when that turned. That's great.
Yep.
Yeah, so what would have scared me if they come in and tell me no, I'm not for this. He'll do that's his own job. I refuse to go any further with counseling or helping anybody
Absolutely.
going into ministry.
Oh, yeah.
You're done.
Yeah.
Yeah, because now I do agree that a wife can take a spouse in these days can take a secondary role, but they've got to at least be Beth's got to at least be my pastor.
Right. And that's
caregiver.
what I've always done. I've always felt like you and the kids were my ministry. I've never been an upfront person in the church. I now that my kids are grown,
She's leading all kinds of
I'm
things these
kind
days.
of, getting in there a little bit more, but it's not, you don't have to be involved in everything. You just have to be supportive.
Right.
Yeah, Brent one time back on Father's Day, when she says, "Well," I said, "You ought to preach for me on Father's Day." So she did. She did one. She didn't like it. It was a very short message.
She did a Mother's Day one
Did you
time.
do it?
Did
One.
great.
Yeah, well, she did Father's Day for me,
She
so I
did
could
great.
enjoy it. Then the next year, she didn't want to do it again, so she wrote it and said, "You preach it, but I'll write it." What was the hardest thing I ever did was I was reading her sermon. I walked away to go give a point, and I thought, "Well, I don't write it. I don't know what I don't know
Yeah.
what I was saying."
That would be hard.
I couldn't do it. You know what I mean? I read her sermon, and Beth says, and I went away to give a point on something, and I realized I didn't write this. I don't know what the point is. I'm just reading a script.
Right.
So I felt like a TV news anchor that
Yeah,
just
yeah.
reads stuff. Didn't work. So
Teleprompter.
Nah.
yeah, so she's quit doing that since.
Yeah.
So tell me as we talk about this, So your primary role is support. Are you doing other things beside that this day after year 3?
The main thing that I am trying. I mean, I can always improve on, and I'm trying to improve on it. Is focusing on the women in our church.
That's good.
I focus on encouraging them and for them to reach out to me when they need me, as far as prayer or whatever. I try to do one-on-one stuff. I try to, but I don't want to offend people at the same time. So
Yeah, I know how that is.
yeah. So I try to do one-on-one stuff. I pray. I do meetings. I do counselings with them. That's what I want my main ministry to be. Through COVID, I got a job, and that got us through COVID because with him being a barber, he wasn't able to work. So my job, and I loved it, but I just recently, a couple months ago, quit it because not that it wasn't the problem. I was allowing it to be the problem, if that makes sense, because it was preventing me from doing what my calling was. And I felt like it was hindering our calling, our walk. So a couple months ago, I quit it because I wasn't able to reach out to women. I was working from 7 in the morning till 5 at night. Get off, go home, feed my kids, feed him, spend some time with them, and I go to bed, start it all over again. I didn't have time. I didn't take breaks.
Yeah.
So I didn't have time to reach out to them, to reply back to them as quick as they, would probably have liked or answered calls. So that's my main
That's really good.
thing.
I've been reflecting on that for a few weeks on some things because I've been thinking about the role of pastors and their wives. If I were doing things over again today and we're renegotiating my contract, I would contract in my wife more with the church up front because don't anybody feel convicted about this. I understand not every church can have a pastor and a wife on staff.
Right.
And I realize you don't have the money for that and you may not believe God for it, but I do actually believe the work of the Levite family is to serve the church. And I think actually if you commit to it, God would provide for it.
Absolutely.
So I think you need to have if I were redoing this today, I would, and it may be something I do in the near future here, especially my wife now moving to the other side of the kids. But I think all the while that she still had that responsibility, I would be putting my wife on staff now. Not necessarily so she had to come a bunch of meetings, but because the role is involved so much of her time with me, the visitation, the going to the hospital together, we count. First thing I recommend to any young pastors do not counsel women alone.
Right.
I don't do it, never have done it. Got a window in my office, got a window in everybody's office door. If it's a woman, my wife's present. The only time my wife's not present is she can't be present. And if she can't be present, I'll bring my secretary and she can sit down there. Or I've brought in other elders' wives before that are counselors and said, would you mind sitting in?
Right.
I just don't counsel women alone. I don't want them to think I'm the new caring husband. I'm not their husband.
Right.
I am not their husband.
Right.
I am paid to listen to you. And I care to listen to you, and I want to listen to you, but don't confuse with me being a counselor for being a substitute.
Right.
So I did that very early on. I've held those grounds, and that's been a blessing for us.
Yeah.
So, and people have never bucked me on it. I didn't walk in this office here till they put a hole in that wall and put a window in.
We've had a couple people kind of be upset about it.
Yeah, well, a few people, you won't talk to me alone? Why do you have to have her here? Because she understands you better. She's going to let me know if you're lying. She doesn't have to say a word, but I'll talk to her about it. Because some women confuse me. The Bible says, let women counsel the women.
Right.
And so I can listen and give spiritual advice, but I can't always tell what's behind that.
Yeah, your discernment isn't always great with
is
it.
not always the best.
Right.
And my wife didn't have to be the primary in the conversation. I can be the primary, but I can say, what are you hearing, hon?
Right.
And what she can say is, I'm hearing, this or that. I didn't even know that. People walked out to go to the bathroom, and I said, you know what's going on here? I said, what? You're kidding, Come back in, call them out on it, and, you find out that's the case,
Right.
Because we don't understand the ways of women necessarily.
Yeah.
And the Bible says we should separate that. So it doesn't mean I can't be a spiritual leader, but I've not violated that. So I think that's a big help here. I think we need, if I were giving advice, though, I would talk to LifeSource Church, put them both on staff. Up the pay a little bit. Make sure that the spouses don't have to go out and get a second job.
Right.
If you can do that, it will bless your church family greater.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Not just that they'll be available to you, it's that they're available as a family.
Right.
That's the key, because there's a cost to lead. And if I were doing this all over again, I would change how I handle that. Mm-hmm. I would absolutely change how I handle that. Matter of fact, I may work on changing it very soon, because I just find right now I'm a good leader now, and I'm a far better leader with my wife beside me.
Absolutely.
Far better leader, and that needs to be recognized a little better in the church today.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that was also part of my problem as well as, having a job. It was affecting my walk personally.
You come home exhausted, then you got to deal with all the church stuff and your family stuff.
Yeah, and then like prayer and getting in the Word, and I was doing that on the way to work, and you can't do that and focus while you're driving.
No,
you
I
can't
totally agree.
focus
I
on
totally
that.
agree.
And I just felt like it. I'll be raw and honest with you. I felt like it hurt me spiritually.
Well, you couldn't
And
have
I
his
go
back,
crying to
let
him
alone
about it.
you couldn't have
Right.
your own back, let alone his back.
Right.
And my wife has my back, but fortunately, I mean, Beth's had to work jobs a couple times in our marriage. She's had to go make donuts early in the morning and stuff. We've been fortunate that through our marriage, she's been able to work odd jobs at weird times, and so we didn't get unyoked.
Right.
But gosh, with our travel overseas and stuff, she couldn't have maintained a job anyway.
Right.
So you're really missing out. So churches, if you're paying your pastor so poor, this is just me speaking, that his wife's having to work to support you, you need to come together and just repent of that, because that's just not right. Don't muzzle the ox, and certainly don't keep the ox's wife busy. Get her put together. So I'm not picking on, I don't know what y'all's arrangement is. I'm just saying that's a coaching point, I think, for a lot of churches out there.
Right.
What as one closest to your husband, Mother Care, what are some of the big blessings you've got from being that partner with him in leading church? What's brought you the greatest joy?
The greatest joy is watching him.
Wow.
He's the spiritual leader of our home, and when
good.
he's on a spiritual high, when he's up here,
Yeah.
I love his enthusiasm, his just get up and go, his
very good.
his spiritual ADHD, if you can say it like that.
No, I think that's
I've
very
always-
good. I like
I've
that.
always been so laid back and so go with the flow that he's actually bringing more energy out of me. Like it gives me the energy to want to do it.
Right. Right.
I like that spiritual ADHD.
I've got it.
Well, the first time I went out with Troy, I went home and I thought, this is never going to work out, because I would never be able to keep up with this guy. I mean, this
Right.
guy, gee whiz,
Right.
Well,
Exactly.
here we go.
Right, exactly.
32 years later.
Right.
Absolutely.
I love it though. I don't have to say a thing. He says it all, so it's okay.
feel
I just
bad
like
about
being,
that
I
too.
just like standing not behind, not in front of. I like
Beside-
standing
beside me.
beside him
Yes.
and
Yes.
watching and doing it with him. I actually learn from him.
Yeah.
And I've learned a lot from him in the past 7-8 years.
Yeah.
As the one closest to your husband, I think that's really good that you said that. I think it's fabulous. But let me go the other way. As the one closest to your husband, what are those costs to lead that you've seen that have been the most on your family, yourself? The cost to put him out there and to walk beside him. Where has the fire hit the hardest?
Our home hits your home the hardest, because our personal time and personal life as husband, wife, or family, as us four all together, I don't think people really do understand the sacrifices that you make, and the time that when you call my husband and he literally gets up from dinner, because like you
Right.
said, he cares about you,
Right.
he's concerned about you. He gets up from our family time, our dinner, to make sure you're okay. And
And then when you call and you're not, it's really, you didn't need to call right then.
it wasn't an
It wasn't an
emergency.
emergency.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't an emergency.
Right.
It's kind of frustrating at that time.
It
I
is.
feel like that too. More these
try
days.
not to take it personally, but
Yeah.
yeah, because
'Cause-
it's like they don't care. It's some people don't. I don't want to say that. There's some people that don't care what time of day it is, if it's important, if it's not, what they're taking him from.
Because none of us mind
Right.
getting up if it's that crisis.
Right.
Right.
Something's happened, heart attack, somebody's died,
Right.
somebody's having a
Right.
crisis moment.
Right,
We
of
don't mind.
course.
No.
We all answer the bell. I mean,
Right.
but when it's not, you need to ask yourself, if you're out there, would you want somebody to bother you in the dinner table? Would you want somebody to bother you after 9 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night? If you think, yeah, I would, then make the call. If you think it's that important that you would get up and go help a stranger, help them, then call. But if it's something that can wait till the next morning and hell will not freeze over or heaven will not go away,
Right.
then do it. But it don't. I think that's a big deal. So cost of family, go ahead.
Right, and that's cost of family. I mean, that's why we've taken one day a week. So we take our Mondays as our day off.
Me too.
And that's our family day. That's for us. That's to focus on our kids, because not only do I miss out on stuff, my kids do. You know, they miss out on things with their dad.
So your Sabbath is really Monday. We do our Sabbath and generally on Monday, except for this week again.
Yeah.
So every now and then we miss one this week because we are going to be gone this week a full day. So we'll change it if
Right.
every now and then
Right.
we'll change it. We'll substitute. We're going out of town in a week.
Right.
You know, we'll flip it to
We've
Friday.
done that.
Yeah, we've done that.
And I try to be, and then when I get bad on it, sometimes I have to go on vacation, come back, say, hey, I'm gonna get back on this.
Right.
You know,
Right.
that's important that you have a Sabbath time, guys. Even though you're Levites, even the Levites cycled around in the Bible. They go back to their villages, take a week off, take time off. You know, you need to take vacation. You need to take time of leave occasionally. That's
Right.
It's tough to do in a young 2-3-year-old church, but where you're at now, you're going to need to.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, one of the things that would be really important, I don't know if this is a bonus for you guys, you're going to be at year 8, you're going to be coming to year 10. I find that churches, when they move to year 10, start changing the texture of the church a bit. They kind of move into, they've become more established. They've become a little bit for the long haul. You may need a year 9.5, take an extended sabbatical and really do a walkabout and kind of say, God, what's the next 10 years look like? Because the next 10 years could be a different or higher calling or a different role, a different mentoring capacity. So I would really encourage that. We've tried to do sabbaticals about every 10 years, intense 30, 60, 90-day sabbaticals where you get away and you just de-stress. And what you do is you make other people lead for those 90 days. And when you come back, you don't take any of those jobs back.
Right.
You know, because it develops character, and then you step up above them. So that's something that I think is important as a bonus. Kara, so cost to lead the family, cost. The blessing is getting to be by your husband and getting to see just the success of ministry and the vision and the energy of ministry. So let me ask one more thing. This is a tough one. If I'm out there, I'm a member of a church, not necessarily going to LifeSource, not going to community, but you're just out there. You're a Joe church person, Mary church lady, and what are some things that you would love them to know about helping their pastor and their pastor's family be healthier, to be happier, to be more better, effective for them when what were things that you'd like them to know if they only knew that, like for example, calling during our dinner time, unless it's important, like really important, like life or death important, you know, or interrupting our day off, unless it's really, really important. What are some things that you would give advice to out there to kind of help people out? Things if they only knew. If they only knew.
Oh, that he's...
Yeah. If they only knew that how much this would help if they could just respect this, or something that they just don't know. They just don't realize that really doesn't build the pastor. That really hurts the pastor. It's not good for the family. It's not good for the church.
Well, yeah. I like what was stated earlier, that he is a pastor, and I think some people take advantage of that. Women do in general sometimes.
No, you guys think so? Both of you,
No.
Beth, were you in on that too?
I will admit that. But some people confuse his compassion and his love for something a little more.
A real agape, it's easy to confuse an agape love, or even a Philadelphia love, a brotherly love, or an agape love of the family of God.
Right.
And they can confuse that for going, this person, boy, he listens to me.
Right.
He looks at me when he looks at me when I speak.
Yeah.
Oh, he could be like my next. You know, Kara's a beautiful mother. She could find somebody else. Kara's, look at her. She's
I
gorgeous.
almost feel like that has been stated before.
No. I've heard that John 3:16, the guy that holds up the end zone sign in the end zone, used to have the wig on, and he left his wife because he says, my wife's beautiful, she can find somebody else, and I'm out there doing this stuff, and I, so I've heard people use justifications like that. Yeah.
Man.
And this guy's doing ministry, so I think there's people out there that think that way, but they need to understand when we care and listen, that's because we care and listen, but that doesn't mean we're your spouse or your husband or your significant
Exactly.
other by any means. That just
Exactly.
means we're called to be there for you. There's a big difference in being called to be there for you and being your household.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
we
well, how would you help coach people on boundaries with that? Boundaries and just understanding that.
Well, as far as boundary goes, I think it kind of goes along with what you said earlier about not counseling, and he's the same way. He's careful with who he counsels, and he makes sure that I'm there with him,
Right.
so that doesn't cause confusion, that they know that I'm always there.
They're hearing all
Right.
the details. There's no secrets here.
Yes.
We're not like buddies,
Yeah.
We're here professionally. We're here as a husband and wife to help you.
Right. And there's been a time or two where, they got a little confused because, they
Yep.
just, when they're not happy at home and they're going to their pastor for counseling, and they just confuse it as
There's a
dumping his caring for more than
Well,
what it
there's
was.
what happens is there's a dependency switch from the dependency at home to the dependency on the one listening,
Right.
which in this case would be the pastor, and then there becomes an unhealthy codependent relationship.
Right.
If that pastor were to exploit that, or that's where you get real problems,
Right.
or the person confuses their care for that and they transfer back their need at home on you. You may not even care. You're just listening and they think, well, he really cares. No, he doesn't. He cares, but he doesn't care like you think he cares.
Right.
You know, that's not what he's interested in. He's interested in your restoration of your home and your life.
Right.
And that, you know, I think that we call that transference and countertransference in ministry and counseling. And it's easy to get those barriers broken down, but by having the spouse present when we do counseling, it kind of breaks that bubble. And I have had people, well, I don't want to talk in front of her. I said, hey, you're going to need to talk in front of her. We're not talking about it.
Right.
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 You know, whatever.
Absolutely.
If you've got something to say that she can't hear, this person sleeps next to me at night. I'd be whispering it anyway. You know, that's just ridiculous. It's not going to go past her. She doesn't gossip. She's not going to have it on social media. I promise you, your stuff's safer with her than me.
Right.
So, and together we're going to give you the best opinion because
Right.
what you need is to be whole, and to be whole, you need a whole couple talking to you.
I think
Yep.
that right there is when you find out what their spirit is really about. If they want to talk to you alone
Yeah.
and not have me in the room, then that shows what their spirit really
And I
is
think-
about and what they're after.
And I think
Yeah.
you need to not be scared to put the brakes in.
Right.
Yeah. And I think people don't be offended by that. It's not personal.
No.
Every one of us can get in a time when we're hurt, we're wounded, and we get in it, we lose a dependent person that is our dependent. We're connected as husband and wife, and you can confuse with somebody that's trying to help you through that with a replacement. We're not replacements.
Right.
We're coaches.
Right.
You know, we're mentors, we're pastors. So I think that's very good, is that make sure you keep boundaries with that. How did COVID change the routine and the rhythm of your family, your church? What did you see biggest thing happen for you during the COVID change for you?
During the COVID, well, that's when I got a job.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
Because the church
So,
yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, that was, I feel like I missed out on a lot during COVID myself. Just, being honest. I mean, I was there, I was supportive. I helped do, whatever I needed to do to make the church ready for us to be able to stay open and all that. But, with me having worked that job like I was, I missed out on
But don't you think for you though, the rhythm routine was you having to press yourself thinner? You had to go to work to kind of support the family. The church needed support to get through this time. We're all going to have to dig in and work a little harder. You
Right.
gave up a lot of family time. You gave up ministry, but yet you really did it to get through ministry.
Right. I think I took on more roles than
Right.
what I normally do.
Yeah.
With working and trying to encourage the women at the same time, doing worship, and having to keep because of COVID, having to keep it a small circle, so only so many people could do so much at once. So you felt like you were taking on more, doing more. I think you had said that earlier about having to go full force ahead,
Right.
And full speed ahead. But yeah, I think that's just picking up more roles and is what changed.
I think the thing I see most is that COVID worked us to death. We worked harder and more hours and more intensity to get through things. You had to create new ministry and then push it through. You didn't have everybody around that you would normally have put all that ministry on, so you were having to drive things a little harder and everything that you're worrying about, people being sick, you're worrying about people getting food, worrying about people how they're going to keep their bills paid, and being available as a church, making sure your church finances were solid and that you were able to hold above ground. I think a lot of people don't realize one of the things that Shane talked about in his series that we did on Pastoring Beyond 2020 was that all of the pastors and churches are going to need a break. Staff is exhausted, church is tired. So churches out there, if you're listening to this, make sure as we come through this COVID, we get back to normalcy. I think all of you need to get your pastors a nice vacation, 7, 8, 10, 15 days. I'm not talking about 4 or 5 days at Branson. I'm talking about 7, 10, 15, 14 days. Get them a vacation someplace. cruise ship if they want to do it, vacation, Antigua. Send them someplace where they can just put their feet in the sand and rest a little bit and start dreaming about the things of God again. I think the biggest thing we need to do is give our staff, give our clergy a little bit of break. We slowed things down here in July, although Lucas and I and the team here on the dock worked a little bit harder when we're getting this thing going. But we all are knowing that we need a break, we need a breath. And it's hard now because we're trying to reposition for the future. But as we come through that, we're going to need to take a break, take some sabbaticals and some rest. Let me ask you, let's go a little deeper with both of you. These couple bonus questions here. We're in bonus time. So I'm going to see if I can get these out. Lucas, we'll see if we can get a few of these out here and kind of wrap up this series. But Brent, what is the ethos, the spirit that really you think defines your process at Life Church? What is your process? What is your spirit? What do you want to see happen in the life of somebody that walks in the door?
Well, obviously we want to see them overcome the challenges that, they're facing. I mean, we're dealing with people from every walk of life. So you're looking at, coming out of criminal backgrounds, addiction, poverty, all kinds of different things. So we're dealing with a mix of things because I don't want to just teach you a bunch of spiritual principles, but then your life is dysfunctional, because we've seen where you have people that are very spiritual people, but because they still don't know how to manage their life, it always bleeds over and it affects their spiritual life. So our biggest focus is obviously we want to get people born again. That's 100% necessary, not just for this life, but for the life to come. But also, man, to help people learn how to function in life, because it's great that you know how to come to church, clap, sing, and say amen. But if you still don't know how to manage a checkbook, and you still don't know how to deal with each other, you don't know how to function on a day-to-day basis, then you're going to make your spiritual life so much harder, because you're still struggling with all these different issues in your life. So we're really trying to hit all ends of it, man. Not just make you a spiritual individual, but also helping that spiritual life influence your day-to-day life, so that way it all goes together. Because if not, then one of them are taking a hit. And that's what we probably see the most, man, is people that they come to church, they're born again, they're having this great experience with God, but they're still going back to a dysfunctional lifestyle. Yeah. They're still going back to dysfunctional lives, and it eventually affects them spiritually. Yeah. It affects them in their walk with God. So we're just trying to hit everything, man, not just change what you do on Sundays, but what are you doing Monday through Saturday.
But that's discipleship.
That is discipleship.
That's that true discipleship that really roots you in, so that's not just on Sunday, your faith can walk.
Yes.
Very, very well said.
It's a lifestyle. It's not just a religion. It's not
That's right.
It's not separate from the rest of your life. It should affect all of your life.
We don't worship a dead God. We worship a living God.
We're preaching this
each
hard.
and every day, and we get planted. No, I think that's
we're
right
preaching
on.
This hard at LifeSource right now. Yeah. That's our series
really
right
good.
now.
Yeah.
So let's pull this together a little bit in a neat package here. What would you see of all of our discussions that we've had in this 4-part series? What are those top, maybe 2 or 3 spiritual needs or issues that we need to be most highly aware of as we go forward? What are the areas that you see? Number one, I know you're saying to be better at disciple, to be rooted. I don't know how we go forward without saying that again.
Right.
Now I'm going to steal that. You need to quote me at that. When you preach that next week, you just say, Pastor Troy up at Community Faith said, we need to be rooted and all that. You need to quote me. So what are some other things, though, you think, just going forward, that top 3 spiritual needs or issues, getting rooted, what else do you see coming up that we need to really dial in on?
I think a lot of it branches from that, but I think getting very, I don't know how it goes around that. Everything I'm saying, I feel like I'm using the word rooted.
Yeah.
I think that has everything to do with it. I think getting more aware of your purpose and who you're supposed to be, because even though I think that rooted is a big issue, because it's what's going to bring you back, because I think there's some people that had to have that necessary distance for whatever reason, but being rooted in Christ, being rooted in the church brought them back. Mm-hmm. But what does it matter if you keep coming back if you're still not understanding your purpose, and that you're doing more than just coming to church? You're doing more than just saying I'm a part of a church or a part of a body, but what is that body doing? Like, what are you actually doing and serving your purpose, because we're not just going to church, we are the church. So what does the church do? And I think that is, besides being rooted in discipleship, that's the other aspect of LifeSource that I think grew and got better and stronger, is we are so much more aware and have a better sense of who we are. And the pandemic brought that out of us at a greater level. We were already doing it, but the pandemic just magnified it. We are way more effective as a church. We're way more effective as a body. And I think that's something that we had to grow in and learn. And that is just knowing our purpose, knowing your function, knowing your assignment, knowing the lane that God's put you in. I think that was, just so important, along with being being discipled, is knowing your purpose. And I think that's one of the spiritual needs that we are continuing to teach, coming out of this pandemic.
Okay, I just did a run back through some of the things you've been saying, and both of you guys. So one is, if you were picking those top spiritual needs, issues, be better at discipleship, get people more rooted. Not that we've been bad at it, but more of that. You mentioned, I'm going to change the order on this. So my second would be, with that, increasing the intensity.
Yes.
You talked about intensity. The sifting, I think, created a more intense church. The shaking has created a more, you shake flour to get rid of the lumps and the bumps and get to the real flour. You mentioned that we way back in there, it was good preaching. You said, who has the body and who has a growth on the body? This sifting is going to shake off those growths and get rid of the stuff that doesn't belong. Yeah. So we're going to have better discipleship. We're going to have the intensity is going to make us be sifted and shake. So we're going to be more effective, is what you were saying.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's key. And that leads to number 3 for me, and I got these a little bit out of order. It leads to what you said in our episode on changes since COVID. You said that we need to live with a bigger mandate of being the church.
Yes.
We need to figure out how to take a bigger mandate, because we've yielded so much of our mandate to the government, to the bureaucrats, that we forgot who we are and whose we are, and that our guy is the king above all kings.
Right.
Right.
He doesn't answer to anybody.
Right.
He doesn't need to go, when you call in and you got a problem, you don't have to say, can I speak to your supervisor? Can I speak to your supervisor? When you talk to God, you're talking to the highest authority. Right. So a bigger mandate. Would you agree?
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
And then out of your notes that I got was, then I love that last part, through the process, know your purpose in the lane you're in.
Yes.
I know the lane you're in, and you guys are in a very good lane. You guys are in a lane that's highly needed in the body of Christ, in your region, our region. To be honest with you right now, we don't do a lot of recovery ministry. We have people that have been in recovery. I almost refer all those people to other churches. And we had some churches that were doing a good job with that in this area, and they've kind of quit that. And I do know that Cornerstone's picked up their work in our area on recovery ministry. Awesome. Matt's there. He's one that used to be chaplain at Shawnee. He's there, and he's doing some good work. I know you guys are. I would quickly, if somebody came to this church that had a recovery issue, quickly refer them to LifeSource Church. Yeah. I would have no problem sending, say, I need you to leave here and go up to LifeSource, at least until you get through this enough, right, and then we'll transplant you back here down the road, because you guys have a gift and an understanding of that. I've never tried to be a pastor for people that I don't feel called to be, but I've also felt comfortable finding somebody that is. And you guys have a great niche and a great lane, and I love your idea there. Especially like the idea that you guys of being the mission you have of being the body of Christ, so that in the absence your city would grieve. I love that. And I love the concept that your goal is to find the issues of your community, transform them through the people, and that the church is responsible for the things that we have in our community, like the poor, the orphaned, and the hungry. I love that. So knowing your purpose and getting in your lane. So let me repeat these. Better discipleship, being rooted and grounded. You agree?
Absolutely.
Number 2, intensity. Let the sifting do something in us. Let it make us stronger. All right. Yes. And then we got a bigger mandate. If you're sifted stronger, you can take on a bigger mandate.
Absolutely.
And finally, get in your lane, know your purpose, and move down the road. We certainly need that in the community of faith. Let me ask one last question. This will wrap up this series. And I think this is a good one. But Pastor Brent, Mother Care, what are, just for you two, just real quick, what are one or two maybe of these core pastoral truths that have led and guided you two as a couple in ministry, through the highs, through the lows? And if you were training a young couple, if a young couple came to if some dude walked into your barbershop and said, I'm thinking about starting a church, or I'm thinking about going to ministry, and you got a chance to sit down and cut his hair, and you had a chance to give him a couple pieces of advice, you two, you had a young mother of the church. What would be those one or two highest recommendations? Your one or two at three most, your top. Don't leave the dock without this in your bag. What do you think?
Well, in my case, as far as if he had a spouse, I definitely would want to encourage her to be supportive of him, and that what is his is yours. So if it's his calling, it is your calling. So you may not have married into it, knowing that was going to be your calling, but if God chooses him, God knew we were going to be together anyway.
Right.
So if he knew,
See
and
the
chose him to
sovereignty
have
of
it-
God in this whole thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You fought the law and the
Yes.
law won.
Yeah.
God won. Good.
Yes.
That's very good. Thank you. So number one, be supportive of the call as a couple. Number two, you got another one?
Yeah, I would definitely say make sure you have a strong covering. So, sometimes people get mad where they're at. So they think, well, I'll go start my own church. And you're starting off on the wrong foot. You're starting off in failure. So I would say, man, I would figure out, why are you starting it? Really make sure you know why you're doing this. Know it's from the Lord. Know God's leading you. And make sure your motives and your spirit's correct. Because if you're starting off injured and wounded, and you're just doing this to just get away because you think you can do it better, you're going to find out the hard way. And I would say make sure you secure your motive, but man, just have a strong covering. Don't do it on your own. Don't feel like you're the only one that can figure this out, and you're the only one who can do it right. So you're going to go
And
do
maybe
it.
take the time. Maybe you need to back up and pay some dues. We talked about
Yeah.
this one, that you got to pay some dues to be in ministry. And so what
Yeah.
you're saying is you need to be faithful first where you are.
Oh, absolutely.
Don't move out of pain.
Absolutely.
And if you're in pain, but you feel the call, work through the pain first,
Right.
so that you
Oh, yeah.
leave with a blessing.
Yes.
Shake the dust, not shake the dust off in a negative way. Leave with a blessing from the house.
Leave in honor.
And if you can't do that right now, maybe it's not time yet.
That's right.
Joseph
right.
got a vision, and it took a lot of time.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, too many people want to just jump right off the dock, and they don't know how to swim yet.
Not even ready.
And I love that. Secure your motive.
Yeah.
Why are you leaving right now?
Right.
Yeah, you may just because you got the call doesn't mean you got to go now.
Why right now?
So you got be supportive of the call as a couple. Make sure you have a strong covering, and that means you need to be faithful first where you are, and not leaving out of pain, and secure your motive. Any other last words?
I think that's our series that he's been teaching on is honor. So if you feel that that's your calling, like he said, you do it right, you leave in a right way, you do it honorably, because God doesn't bless something that's not honorable. So if you want what you're doing and what you believe is your calling to be blessed and to grow, then you just do it with honor.
Right.
Yeah.
Don't leave in, like he said,
I think that is so
Yeah.
true. There's a real good book. What is it called? The Three Kings book that they have. It's an old book where it talks about Absalom, Solomon, and Saul, and it talks about how to do things right. You can be an Absalom, you can be a Saul, you can be a David. Go read that book. It's an old book. It's a good book. When you have problems, you don't want to be an Absalom pulling people out of a church and stuff like that. That's not the way to do it. There's a way to daughter a church and send people out with a blessing, and there's a way to destroy a church. We don't need that in the kingdom.
Right.
I want to close with this because I think what you said at the very end is if you feel do it honorably.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great teaching right now, Brent. When we got ready to leave the Methodist Church, we left in good standing. I could go back tomorrow. I wouldn't, but I could, because there's a letter in my file that says he left in good standing.
Right.
We really searched the Lord. We took time. And when we got ready to go, it actually leaked out that we were thinking about it before we had made the final decision, honestly. And my DS called all mad about it. Like, I hear you're leaving. I said, actually, I'm thinking about it, but I haven't made that decision. And I just got back from vacation. I was going to schedule an appointment for you for on Tuesday. He said, well, you need to get over here now. So I went over there now to meet with him, and I went through the whole thing. He said, well, that's fine. And and I said, well, I've got a meeting scheduled with the bishop. So I went into our bishop's office, and I said, Bishop Palmer, Beth and I have really spent some time in discernment. We think God's calling us to leave. Our heart is kind of leaving from here, but I'm your chair of evangelism. I'm a pastor here. I was ordained by you. I promised when I was ordained that I would serve at your will as my bishop. I'm prepared to stay if you tell me I have to stay, but I can't promise you my heart will be in it, but I will do my very best. And he said, well, that'll be good enough. Your best is great. He said, let me go in here and get you a better job. The cabinet's meeting. We'll get you double pay. We'll get you 3 times bigger church. We'll get you this or this and that. And I said, I'm not here to hold you hostage for money. We're here because God's called us to something else.
Right.
And if you tell me I'm going to stay, my wife and I are going to put our pants on or big boy panties on, and we're going to go back to the church and we're going to do our very best. And we believe God will honor that,
Right.
and we will do that. But what we really like to do is I'd like you to release me if you would be willing to.
Right.
And I got done with that conversation with him. My wife and I are in his office, and Bishop Palmer said, I've been a bishop for 15 years. I've been a pastor, a DS, for 20 of that. And then, you're the first pastor to ever walk in my office and ask permission to leave. Mostly they come in and tell me to go stick it where the sun don't shine. And they tell me, take this job and shove it and go to HE double hockey sticks. He said, you've come in and actually said you're willing to serve. And I said, I'm really serious. I mean, we'll keep serving if you want us to serve. But our heart is into what we want to do here. And he says, I'm going to release you. He said, and here's the deal. I'm going to put a letter in your file. If you ever want to come back, you just call me. And if I'm not the bishop here, wherever I'm at, I'll get you a job. Because to do it right, to do it honorably, you've done that.
Yeah. Right.
And he signed my credentials, and they used to take them and just shred them. And he said, he went old school. He signed the back of them and handed them to me. And he said, when you left in good standing. And then he said, I said, well, Bishop, I knelt down. I was ordained by a bishop, and I took the vows in front of a bishop. I need that release. He said, well, kneel down at this altar. And he lifted his hands up off me. And you do things right, you leave with respect, and then God opens new doors.
Yes.
Right.
It's all about it. He says the first person in his entire ministry to come in and leave appropriately.
Right.
Wow.
I think there's a season for everything.
Yeah.
And when you finish a season in one place and you can't grow anymore, then sometimes it is time to be released and go on. If you
Right.
can't get what you need in that area, then you need to go where you can.
Well, I think the rule of thumb here is don't be scared to
Right.
do things right.
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 Yeah.
And don't be scared
Right.
to do things maybe even boldly, but do it respectfully and humbly.
Right.
And I think you guys do it honorably.
Yeah.
I think I think what you guys have given there is just very powerful. Be supportive of the call as a couple. Make sure you have a strong covering. Make sure you've been faithful first where you've been planted,
Right.
and work out of there in due season. It may take you a little more time. Maybe you got to do things right. Maybe you need to be coached, and then make sure your motive is secure. You're leaving for the right reasons. And lastly, if you feel it's your thing to do it honorably. Do it the right
Right.
way.
Yep.
Guys, it's been a pleasure to have you guys at On the Dock. Just been a pleasure.
been
Don't
an
you think,
honor.
Mother Beth?
Oh, yeah. it's
Yeah,
been
what
great.
you're offering people is great. I hope you enjoy it. Guys, you guys up at LifeSource Church, you have a fine pastor and mother of your church, and you guys are blessed. If you ever do anything wrong to them, we're going to drag them down to Community Faith Church, and they can have the church here. We'll retire. So y'all be real nice to these guys. They are lovely people, and I hope you enjoy their leadership. And we just want you to continue to work with us at On the Dock. Find us at onthedock.org. You can email us at info@onthedock.org. If you want to know where these guys go to church, email us. We'll tell you where they are. You can go to church with them. And then we love to have you on our podcast platforms, YouTube, Facebook, and YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, Facebook, Google Podcasts, Roku, Rumble, and SermonNet. And reach out and comment to us at Facebook, Instagram, Telegram, and Twitter. Let us know what you liked. Share shout outs and things like that. And make sure you share, subscribe, hit notify, like on the podcast, and make sure you get this out to other people, because I think what they've shared, a lot of people need to know. We'd always love to have you as a Patreon partner. Go to On the Dock with Pastor Troy at Patreon. Become one of our partners or sponsors. And as always, we'd love to have you at Community Faith Church. We meet Sundays at 10 o'clock, Wednesdays at 6:30. We'd love to have you at our Community of Faith. If you want to check us out, you can go watch us on TV at coftv.com. That is not a substitute for coming to see us. It's a big difference, but you can check it out. And you can always check us out on our Facebook or YouTube platforms as well. We'd love to have you. Brent, one last time, tell people how to find you at LifeSource.
All right. We are at 1011 East 6th Street. We're in West Frankfort, Illinois. We've got services on Sundays at 11:30. Sorry. So 11:30 on Sundays. We do have a free cafe from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. and all of that's free. There's donuts, pastries in there for you, and then worship and word at 11:30. And of course Thursdays at 7 o'clock, and then we have a free meal from 5 to 6:30, and that's a free hot meal. It's a full dinner, and so if you're running a little bit late and you don't think you're going to be able to have dinner at home, come early, meet with us, and come right into service, and I promise you will not regret it.
Fantastic. Guys, Brent, Kara, it's been a pleasure. Mother Beth. Guys, it's been great. It's been great. It's been great.
Thank you for having
Hope you've enjoyed it. We've been glad to have you for this entire LifeSource Church series. Go check out the whole series. I know it's great. Look out for other series we got coming up real soon. And we look forward to seeing you around on the dock.